Hey guys, it's Roscoe, and on Space Couch today I'm going to be reviewing this, Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey, Book 5 of the Expanse. Now, this is set essentially directly after Book 4, which was all set on that planet Ilus through the gate mechanism. And this is now the Rocinante's return from that mission back into our solar system. So that's about 18 months, I think, worth of travel from there to our solar system. And they arrive back to find that that solar system is pretty much in chaos. Mars is losing millions of people to this land rush, as is Earth, of course. Extremist factions of the Outer Planets Alliance are launching terrorist attacks, raids, stealing supplies, including from the shipyards on Callisto. Now, the Rocinante, as you recall, it got pretty beaten up when it was on its previous journey around Ilus, so it needs some serious repair. It's going to be stuck at Medina Station, which is formerly the Nauvoo, formerly the Behemoth, for at least 6 months while everything is fixed. So in the meantime, there's nothing keeping the crew together. You know, there's always they were always on the Rocinante, they was always under threat, they were always together. Now, it's downtime, essentially. So the crew, it very quickly breaks up and they all go their separate ways, meaning to return to the Rocinante when those repairs are done. So, Holden, he stays on Medina to oversee the repairs, and Fred Johnson, the head of the OPA, is there as well. Obviously, they're going to be having some strategic talks, no doubt. Alex heads to Mars, his home world, to ostensibly try and patch things up with his ex-wife, but what do you think is going to really happen there? That's not going to work out at all. So, Amos is also on his way to the inner solar system to Earth to follow up on a close family friend slash member who's died recently, while Naomi, she heads to Ceres to help with a family emergency, as it's called. Now, that emergency is her son, Philip. Yes, she has a son we didn't know about. He is the guy who led the raid on Callisto to steal supplies, and he's now a member of the militant factions. This whole, oh, you must come back to Ceres to help save your son from turning bad, it's a trick to kidnap Naomi. And they hoped to also get the Rocinante and Holden, who they intended to kill. No such luck. Many people have tried to kill Jim Holden and steal the Rocinante. You've got to do better. So, she's essentially press-ganged aboard a ship that's on its way to launch terror attacks. Her ex is Philip's father, and he is the head of the militant faction, which calls itself the Free Navy. Now, meantime, back on Medina, Holden's asked by, I think it's Monica Stewart, the reporter, to look into reports of missing ships, both from the Martian Navy and also refugee colony ships heading through the gate. How do you find ships that disappear? You don't look for them, you look for new ships that appear. So that's essentially what he's trying to do. On Mars, Alex has met up with Bobby Draper, and they're looking into the same thing. Bobby's attacked and Alex rescues her, and after some more adventures on Mars, they end up aboard the Martian Prime Minister's ship en route to a peace conference. Now, on Earth, Amos is tying up his personal business, but just before he leaves, he decides he wants to visit Clarissa Mao. You remember her from Book 3? She's the one who tried to frame the crew of the Rocinante and have them killed by blowing up that Martian warship when they were all at the gate, and all the things that followed from there. Before she changed her side, of course. She's now in an underground maximum security prison for psychos for the rest of her life. And Amos is visiting with her in that underground prison when the Earth is suddenly attacked by the militant belters. They're dropping asteroids on the planet. You know, it's a bit like in Babylon 5 when the Centaurs bombed the non-home world with the use of mass drivers, dropping giant rocks on it. Essentially, you create an extinction level event depending on the size of the rocks. The raid on Callisto at the very beginning of the book by Philip was to steal stealth materials that essentially is hiding the radar profile of these rocks until it's too late for the security forces to stop them from hitting the planet. millions and then billions of people are dead, and Earth is in complete chaos and collapse. Tsunamis, all that sort of thing, as you'd expect from any sort of attack like that. So Amos and Clarissa have got to bust out of that underground maximum security prison for psychos, trek across North America, and try and find a ship to escape from Earth. At the same time, all of this is happening at the same time, all these various events. There's attack on Tycho Station, where Holden and the Rocinante are. It wasn't Medina Station, as I said earlier, it's Tycho Station. Now, there's also an attempted mutiny to kill Fred Johnson and, obviously, Jim Holden, because the Belters hate him because he's an Earther, but it fails. However, the attackers do manage to steal the last remaining sample of the proto-molecule, you know. So it's out there somewhere now. Would that be corporate interests allying with the militants? Perhaps. I'm sure we'll find out in due course. Now, while this is happening on Earth and on Tycho Station, and to Naomi, the Martian Prime Minister's convoy that Alex and Bobby are on is attacked by Belters. Part of their own flotilla turns on them also, so there's all these coups and everything going on. Now, Naomi has managed to escape from the ship that she's on. She's warned her friends that there's attacks coming. She wrote some code way back in the day that overwrites the magnetic bottle on the drives. So essentially it was just a... And that's been used. That was used by her ex way back in the day to destroy ships, and that's why they split up. That's just a little bit backstory there. So anyway, the Rocinante has now been repaired, and it's also closing in. So you've got Clarissa Mao and Amos coming from Earth and the Moon under Avasarala's protection. You've got Alex and Bobby and the Martian Prime Minister coming in from there. You've got Naomi, who has managed to escape from her prison ship, essentially, and join Alex and Bobby. And then you've got Jim Holden and the Rocinante coming in. Now, the four of them, the crew of the Rocinante, have realised over the months that it's the only home they've got, you know, and that they're a little weird, messed up family. It's good to have them reunited because they've all been thinking, I should never have left the Rocinante, I should have just stayed there. Now, the ship, the Rossi, has always been understaffed when it's been under Holden's command, of course. It's what a crew of 4, when it should be about 20 or so if it's staffed by the Martian military. Now, for the flight to this peace conference that everybody is going to, it does have a full complement provided by Fred Johnson. But he just thinks it's strange to have so many people on the ship, you know. It's just odd for him. They're so used to just the 4 of them, lots of extra space, I guess. But, you know, they do need to recruit more crew. But that's a tough job, given how close-knit the 4 of them actually are. However, speaking of increasing crew, Amos has indeed brought Clarissa Mao with him, and Alex has brought Bobby Draper. You know, those two, they don't really fit anywhere else either, you know, and they've also got history, good and bad, with the Rossi crew. So maybe we'll see if they end up as part of that crew in due course, maybe in the next book. It would be interesting, because, yeah, difficult to fill positions on that ship. Those two are probably about your only hope. Right, so, this peace conference, essentially. Mars, Earth, total chaos. OPA is divided. The Free Navy, which is the militant Belters, they're the rising force. Coups on Mars, Navy scattered, they're trying to seize control of the gate mechanism, all that sort of thing, you know. It's a complete nightmare. However, at least they do now know what happened to all those Navy ships that Monica had asked Jim to look into. They had indeed been bought and or stolen by the Free Navy, rerouted, transponder codes changed, all that sort of thing. But what about those missing colony ships? Can't find any sort of pattern to explain that disappearance. And in the end, they figure out something's eating the ships as they pass through the gate. You know, the final chapter of the book does indeed show that happening. There's a colony ship passing through when it's essentially like dismantled stroke assimilated. The description of it is that the guy who's on the bridge looks at his colleague and suddenly he's seeing like a cloud, and then he is a cloud. So yes, what is going on there, I wonder. As I said, that'll probably form the basis of the next book. Now, The first trilogy, that was all about the proto-molecule, setting that up. This second trilogy, that's been about the gate and its consequences. And I reckon the third trilogy that will start in book 7, that's going to be about the magic bullet that killed the builders. I expect. I could be wrong, of course. Excellent as always, even if there was no Detective Miller in this book. I do hope he appears soon. Good character. It was good to have him back as a main character in the last book, so bring him back. But I say, excellent book as always, what with this crew scattered across the entire solar system, trying to save the day. Ava Sarala, she's a background character again in this. She's now the acting UN Secretary General. Seeing as her husband is one of the casualties of the war, there will be revenge. And you know, she will wreak that revenge indeed, excruciatingly so. See what she did to Clarissa Mousefather, for instance. Anyway, guys, that was just my review of Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey. As always, The Expanse continues to intrigue and excite. TV shows coming up in a few months. Book 6 will be out in a year's time. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this content. Leave me a comment or a suggestion for a book you'd like to see reviewed, or hit that like button.